welcome back. This is Anatomy of a DARVO Part 3. Part 3 is like a surprise video on account of me being epically verbose and having planned 2, and then didn't stop talking. So welcome to Part 3. I'm so excited to have you here. Make sure you watch Part 1. I really expose the inner workings and the guts of a DARVO. I walk you through a very sneaky, but very common DARVO takedown. In Part 2, I then go into a lot of the different types of DARVOs. So martyr DARVOs, love bomb DARVOs, DARVOs that are sneak attacks, DARVOs that are silent ghost DARVOs that you didn't even realize were DARVOs, and they smack you like 2 weeks later and you're like, oh, that's what that was. Yeah. And then I have a final one, and this is the DARVO by proxy, and it's a lot because I'm a lot. It just became a really long video. So we're going to do the DARVO by proxy in this third video separately from the other 2 videos. And I'm going to embed it very specifically in a scapegoat narrative. Of course, if you're at my channel, then chances are you're here because you want to know specifically about narcissistic system and scapegoating, abuse and tactics. So let me make sure that I really dive into this using the example that very unfortunately might hit home. I simultaneously want you to relate to it so that you know that you are heard and seen and understood, and also don't ever want you to have to relate to this content. I don't want you to have to relate to anything I put out, because the stuff I put out is really painful, awful. The stuff I put out hopefully isn't painful and awful. The stuff I talk about is, you know what, that's up to you. That's up to you. You get to read into that whatever you want to. Let's just move on to Part 3. DARVO by proxy. Here we go! Okay. I'm Erin Watson. I should probably introduce myself. I am a narcissistic systems and scapegoat expert. I'm a trauma and burnout specialist. I have a million years of clinical training and experience, and research, and in education as well. So I come at this from a multitude of angles to try and support you in the best way that I can and I know how. And I also tend to focus very specifically on the things that don't have top 5 lists or don't have easy, palatable, concrete answers. So how do you recover when there's no accountability and there's no justice? How do you respond to a DARVO takedown knowing that you're probably not going to recognize it until weeks later? And that's by design, right? It's covert for a reason. Abuse is covert for a reason. And how to deal with the complex and confusing and disenfranchised grief that is part of a recovery where there isn't going to be perhaps that vindication and validation that we rely on for trauma healing. So there's a lot. There's a lot of really murky and really difficult things that come out of this, especially if you're living with things like complex PTSD and it's lifelong, and you feel like, you know, you've wasted so much of your life already. Because a lot of you come at this and you're well into your, third, fourth, fifth, whatever decade of life. And you're thinking, how much time do I have left? And how do I get that back? How do I get me back? How do I get back to me? So that's where I come in, hopefully, to help you, not to give you doom and gloom and awful stuff, but to offer you things that speak about the doom and gloom and awful stuff that you have been experiencing so that you genuinely feel validated in a way that has never been recognized before by the people who ought to have recognized it and been there for you, but they weren't. So your community of scapegoats are there for you instead. I'm there for you instead. Okay. So we're going to talk about DARVO by proxy. This means by proxy essentially is like getting someone else to do the dirty work for you. So the toxic person can get away with it. This is controversial. I sometimes call this Charles Mansoning because the abuser can essentially be completely hands off. They're just the leader, but their fingerprints eventually aren't even on the abuse because it's their army that's carrying out their wishes for them. And this enables them to sort of play that hero role. They can swoop in and be the revered person, the hero, or they can be the victim and get all the sycophants and the support, rushing their way. Okay, so the DARVO by proxy is a tactic to really solidify within you the urge to question and control yourself instead of recognizing that the toxicity is actually external to you. It's not you, it's not your fault, it's not about you. So it's how you end up taking responsibility for a problematic relationship, and therefore you are putting in all the effort to repair it. And when I say repair it, I know scapegoats and empaths try and fix. You do, you're loving people, you try and fix. But repair in toxic situations really just means you're putting in all the effort to glorify or revere or boost the ego of the abuser, all the while tiptoeing around their emotions and cleaning up the shame for them. Because really, that's the best you're going to get. That's the connection that is on offer. These are the crumbs. Okay, so this is a bit of a complicated dance. I'm going to break it down using an example of a scapegoat situation in a family setting whereby there is one sibling that is being bullied or mobbed by the family members, so family members including their parents or the other siblings. Now, scapegoating, of course, has nothing to do with the person being scapegoated, even though we make it all about them. We say they're the identified patient, they're the reason this family is in therapy. Has nothing to do with them. They're just symptomatic of the toxicity, the canary in the coal mine, if you will. So they didn't cause it, but they were threatening to the narcissistic system because they were the ones most likely to expose the truth. They stopped singing. There's noxious gas in here. The canaries are dropping. Okay. And yet, for the toxic system, they don't want to be exposed, so they need to squash down that scapegoat. Like, "Ooh, don't be bringing out that toxicity for all to see." So scapegoats often report that it isn't just the parent that DARVOs them. So it's even their siblings, right? Siblings who often witness this abuse lifelong as well are going to take up the torch and throw them under the bus to save themselves, right? So the siblings have heard the parent DARVO the scapegoat so much that they also then have to tiptoe around the parent's wounded ego and the parent's volatile emotionality and grovel to make the parent feel better constantly. After every DARVO incident, the siblings are recruited as well. Because that's where they live. They live in that space. The narc person lives in that space of reverse victim offender. The woe is me. Come to my aid. Give me attention, give me attachment, don't abandon me. So everybody gets sucked into that vortex. And when the siblings get sucked into that, so even if they weren't part of the original DARVO, they weren't part of the setup, the campaign to get the scapegoat to react so that the narcissistic person could garner sympathy, um, the the siblings still have to do cleanup because the parent's going to go to them. Oh, do you know what they did? Do you know what they said to me? Can you believe? So it's part character assassination, part smear campaign, part, grovel for me, part guilt trip. There's a whole lot going on. And understandably, the siblings are exhausted by this. They're going to resent the scapegoat because they're going to think the scapegoat triggered or activated the parent. Like, why couldn't you just have kept your head down, don't rock the boat, just we were doing okay. They're not realizing that the scapegoat didn't trigger the parent. The parent needed supply. So the parent set up a situation whereby they could then DARVO. Go to video 2 for exactly how that happens and why. Okay, this is obviously misguided, this idea that the scapegoat triggered the parent. The scapegoat did not trigger the parent. The parent went looking for emotional release, and they used the scapegoat as target practice, knowing that they're going to get the biggest dopamine hit from that reaction. They're going to the most, you know, sensitive, and I say that in a good way, the most sensitive, emotionally in tune, vibrant person, the empath, the one who is sensitive to the energies of people. And sensitive to the energies of themselves. Of course, they're going to go to that person. That person is going to have the best reaction because they're not closed off and numbed out. Okay. They're also going to get the most sympathy from others as a result, because if they get a big reaction from the scapegoat, they get more sympathy from the siblings. The thing is, the siblings don't recognize this dynamic because they're too much in their own survival mode. So that's what happens. They are just like treading water, head in sand, get through this. So they cannot assess and account for what is actually happening. There's no space for that. And the narc person makes sure of that. We can't have other people noticing what's happening. So we have to give little survival tasks to everybody. Everybody has to be drowning in a narcissistic system in order for the narc person to have that sort of power and control over everyone. Otherwise, they'd just be called out. Then they don't have anything over you. So as the frustration builds from everyone having to walk on eggshells, the siblings are going to start blaming the scapegoat for causing it. They get so tired of the emotional labor involved after the parent is done abusing you that they start to hold you responsible for the DARVOs, hold you responsible for the abuse, right? Because the parents go to the other siblings after they've targeted you. They act wounded. They're trying to garner as much like love and affection and sympathy from those other children as possible. So that's supply, supply, supply. And as such, the siblings are going to start chastising the scapegoat. What is wrong with you? Why would you set them off like that? Or the horrifically stigmatizing, but unfortunately very often used, are you mentally ill? So they're so done with the parents' emotional suffocation, these tidal waves of needing to clean up their parents' emotional needs, that the only source that they can think of to like stem or control the tide overflow is you, is the scapegoat. So over time, they start to see the constant DARVOing as evidence that you caused the abuse. It's a simple cause and effect fallacy. Because you were present when the abuser started abusing you, therefore you must have instigated it. So you were the source of the DARVO and of the parents' constant emotional upheavals, and therefore the source of their own emotional agony and exhaustion. So they think that if the parent were less sad and hurt all the time, then the parent could love them and show up for them finally too, right? They're emotionally starving as well. Toxic systems harm everybody. And since they are just as emotionally starving as you, they are willing to do anything to get their emotional nutrients. So they now assume that since the parent is always upset at you, well, if you just fixed yourself, the parent wouldn't be upset. So the parent could be safer, healthier, more loving, etc. for them. This is how they begin to participate in mobbing you. Now, remember, in narcissistic systems, everyone gets sucked in. So everyone is fighting to get these scraps of love and affection and connection and safety. And so anything or anyone they perceive as making that more difficult is going to be targeted. So this isn't just the case for families. This happens in romantic relationships, in workplaces, social groups, and beyond. So what makes this a DARVO by proxy? So aside from the obvious fact that siblings will simply DARVO you in arguments too, right? They saw it happening so much, they're just going to do what they see. They're also participating in a larger, more implicit or experiential DARVO. So they're all participating in this grand denial of the parent's behavior. Daddy isn't toxic or abusive. He's just so hurt and harmed by the scapegoat all the time. Then there is a perpetual and persistent attack on you and your character. What is wrong with you? Why are you so bad? Why do you keep causing this? And then everyone is acting hurt and wounded by you. So why did you upset the parent? Why did you make life harder for us? Do you realize I just spent a whole week trying to prop up dad again and you just tore it all down? Don't you see how stressful this is for me? Why are you the way you are? This is painful for us. Holy shiz, friends. It's bad, isn't it? It's bad. Okay, let's take a loving breather moment. Kudos to you for watching this. Right, kudos to you for watching all of them. You are strong and brave and powerful. You also aren't alone because I see you. If I didn't see you, I wouldn't be writing this. So many of your scapegoat comrades see you as well. They're with you alongside you in this. Okay, we are almost there. Let's now bring this into a combo DARVO. So you've watched the first few videos, hopefully. We're going to add in a sneak attack plus a DARVO by proxy. You'll probably see some of the silent DARVO tactics. You're going to see, of course, the martyrdom and all of that. Okay, you're minding your business. Da, 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 and are told, so I was talking with your aunt the other day, and they agree with me that what you did last week was rude. Or, I was just chatting with friend, cousin, and you know what? They said that you're so rude. They agree. You must be so hard for me to put up with. What a conversation opener. Thank you for chatting. Okay, so we have a smear. We have a character assassination. We have a gaslight. We have a DARVO. We have a triangulation. And we have what I call bystander reliance. Another term I made up. If you're watching my videos, you know I make up terms all the time. We need a vernacular to talk about this. We cannot talk about it. If we don't have words, we cannot expose it. If we do not talk about it, we need a language. So I am giving you that language. I'm also taking language that other very brilliant, amazing people have come up with. If you have language, please share it in the comments. I love hearing the amazing things that your wonderful smart minds are coming up with. Okay, so bystander reliance is when the toxic person ropes someone else in order to make their DARVO or manipulation work. So maybe the sneak attack DARVO didn't quite land, so they need to sneak up on you with a and so also said. Okay, so by the way, for some fact checking here, your aunt or cousin or friend or whomever may literally never have said that thing, right? Or what was actually said was deeply, deeply twisted before being brought up to you. Maybe they said, oh, okay, that sounds hard. You thought that was rude. Okay. That was enough for the narcissistic personality style to shift the narrative the way that they need to, so that they could then sneak attack DARVO you. Okay. So, or you know what? Honestly, the entire interaction could have been fabricated. They may never have even talked to your aunt or your cousin or your friend. Okay. The what you did last week, also, that could mean anything. What are we talking about? But now you're second guessing all of your behavior and interactions, all of them. You're second guessing just you as a person and how you take up space. They have got you self-policing. And they may never even have talked to anyone about you at all. They just needed to say something to you to get you reacting or to activate you, or they just needed to like say something mean to feel better about themselves, but they didn't want to say it out of their own mouth. They wanted to DARVO by proxy. We'll get someone else to say it. So they are propping up their credibility by fabricating evidence from someone else, right? Because if it's just them saying, I think you're so rude, you can be like, I believe you see me that way. I disagree with your assessment of me. In essence, you can say, okay, cool story. I'm not. No one else thinks I am. And that's the key. The no one else thinks I am. If they know no one else thinks this person's rude, no one else thinks it's justified to scapegoat this individual. There is nothing about this individual that warrants such scapegoating. So they need bystander reliance. This is narcissistic system abuse, scapegoat system abuse. Okay. They need to ensure that you cannot question their DARVOs or their accusations or their attacks. If other people agree with them and think you're rude or you did do that, then maybe you should examine yourself. Well, if everyone else thinks this, am I the common denominator? And this often is said, that everyone else. So perhaps you heard growing up a lot of the time, oh, you've really upset me, and you've now upset everyone in the family. Whoa, how? They weren't even here. But it's bringing other people in. Proxy, proxy. Okay. Narcissistic abusers need bystander reliance in order to have any power or control over you. So as you can see, the power of this DARVO is so far-reaching when you combine all three videos. It's so far-reaching. And if you have been a victim of even one incident, I said this in my first video, if you've just experienced just one incident of DARVOing, you know how destabilizing it truly can be. So if you've experienced the lifetime of them, it can really, really make you feel crazy. This is why you end up in coaching and therapy with all sorts of pains and emotional, psychological wounds and ailments, and not really know how to bring it all into its root cause, which is the narcissistic system and scapegoat abuse, which was the dismantling of you, your self-trust, your trust in others, your safety, your credibility, and your support network. You are completely ostracized. You are completely othered from anything that we would assume is necessary, not just for survival, but for truly thriving and becoming alive and being autonomous in your life. Okay. If you follow these tactics, these DARVO tactics in order, so from video 1 all the way through to this one, video 3, you're going to see a particular pattern emerge. And this is like the full roundhouse kick to the heart. So they wind you up with the emotional punch. Then in your confusion, you step into the ring to try and set things right. Then they knock you down completely. The kicker is that they do so in such a way that you believe not only did you deserve it, but that you somehow made them kick you in the face by being bad. Bad. As if they weren't just doing stretches and warm-ups in the wings, preparing for this fight, selling tickets to it, inviting people to witness it, orchestrating it. You didn't even know the takedown was going to happen. You just showed up. Probably reeled in by a love bomb. So the trauma isn't just that they emotionally and verbally harmed you. It's that at the end of harming you, they look good. Not just neutral. That's the key. Not just neutral. They look good. They look like a good person because they were able to use their DARVO skills to make you look actively bad, not just neutral. The more times that they can provoke you, the more reactions they can get out of you, the more you look like a bad person and they look amazing, and the more sympathy that they can get. So when DARVOs are used not only to deny an argument or wrongdoing, but to then cause you to become reactive or to incite an argument, it almost guarantees that you will soon find yourself apologizing to them, working to fix their feelings, and doing whatever you can to boost their ego to preserve the relationship. So when this happens, and I will say it is common in narcissistic systems and scapegoating, you end up absorbing the shame and self-loathing that they are projecting onto you, right? They are hoping you will hold it and take care of it so that they don't have to, because it all started there. It all started from their own shame and self-loathing and fears of abandonment. So if they can make you hate yourself, if they can make you feel shame, if they can make you fear abandonment so that you work harder to keep them, then all their needs are met without them having to do any of the emotional work. So you end up not only protecting them from responsibility inadvertently, right? It's not your fault, but offering them the reverence and glory they seek to feel good enough in themselves. And when they hear you say, I know you love me, I know you're a good parent, I don't know why I suck so much, I don't know why I'm struggling, thanks for putting up with me, they get the confirmation they need that they did nothing wrong. Because after all, you agree with them that you were, quote, hard to love. So, of course, in doing so, you lose access to your self trust and the ability to ever stand up to them again. And that is the whole entire point of a DARVO, to ensure you simply question yourself and never speak up against their harm. So be clear with yourself right now. I am going to be very clear with you. None of this is a sign or an indication of your meekness or weakness or other misguided and inaccurate terms that we use when we're talking about survival strategies. No matter what, you can trust yourself. Your self-trust, your self-knowledge never left you. It was buried under the rubble of toxicity. It was obscured by the fog of their needs. And as I said in video number 1, the reason this feels so awful is proof that that self-trust is still there, right? Because your body is taking those cues, taking that intuition and saying something is off, and I know it's off because I know this isn't right. Okay, so now that you know you didn't make any of this up, this happened, and any of your reactions and responses to it make sense, you are getting sucked in not because you're weak, but because this is brainwashing and manipulation and because it's you against a system, right? It really happened. It's messed up. Please take some time to be so gentle and so loving with yourself the way you deserved to be. And even if you do not know what that feels like at all, practice on yourself what it could be, what could be available to you if only it were possible. This is where we start. We just start with hope. We start with practice. We start with the dream of something better, even if we're bootstrapping it. Step 1, brick by brick. Just because no one else showed up for you doesn't mean you cannot show up for yourself. And this is what makes you truly the recovery rebel that you are. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for doing 3 videos. Really, it was supposed to just be 1. That's how that went. Please like, please subscribe, because I'm just starting out and I'm trying. I don't really know what I'm doing. And I really, really thank you for being there to get the information, even if the way I present it isn't with the perfect camera, or the perfect microphone, or the perfect... What is perfect? Imperfection is a kindness to self, and I am allowing that kindness to myself, and I am sharing that information for you in the hopes that you can also learn to offer that kindness to yourself as well. All right, make sure you watch my other videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.